This was more than just a bad day at work. It was a clash of attitude, a showdown of disrespect. One waiter pushed it too far, and the customer fought back. But here's the twist, the customer wasn't just any diner. He was the big Shaq, the owner of the restaurant. What happened next? Prepare for a confrontation that will leave you speechless. The Golden Spoon, a trendy, bustling restaurant filled with the soft, soothing sound of jazz music in the background. The warm, golden lights gently bathed the room, and the familiar symphony of clinking silverware filled the air. This was a place where people came to relax, enjoy a great meal, and share laughter with friends and family. But tonight, something unusual was happening at one of the cozy corner tables. There sat a man, dressed simply in a plain t-shirt and a pair of jeans. He looked like any other customer, maybe just a tourist exploring the city or a local grabbing a quiet dinner. His name was Shaq. What no one in the restaurant knew, not the busy chefs in the kitchen, not the cheerful hostess at the front, and certainly not the staff rushing around, was that Shaq wasn't just any customer. Shaq was the owner of the Golden Spoon. But tonight, he wasn't here as the owner. He was here incognito, a secret visitor in his own restaurant. He wanted to see how his beloved restaurant was doing when no one knew he was watching. Shaq believed that the true heart of a restaurant was its service and how it made people feel. So, instead of showing up as the boss, he decided to experience it like any other guest. But as soon as his evening began, Shaq noticed something off. His waiter for the night was a young man named Leo. Leo was tall, with a neatly pressed uniform and a sharp haircut. But something was missing, his attitude. The moment Leo arrived at Shaq's table, there was an obvious lack of warmth. No friendly smile, no cheerful greeting, just a tired face and a sense of impatience. Shaq, being polite, smiled and placed his order, a simple pasta dish and a glass of water. But Leo didn't look up. He scribbled the order on his notepad without making eye contact. Shaq could even hear a faint sigh escape Leo's lips, almost as if taking an order was a burden. Trying to give Leo another chance, Shaq politely asked about the soup of the day. A simple question, right? But Leo's reaction was anything but friendly. He rolled his eyes, yes, actually rolled his eyes, before replying in a flat, almost rude tone, "Didn't you hear the specials board? It's cream of mushroom. Anything else?" For a moment, Shaq was taken aback. Here he was, the owner of the restaurant, being treated like an inconvenience by his own staff. But more importantly, Shaq thought about the other customers, the ones who didn't own the place, who just came here hoping for a pleasant meal. If this was how they were treated, what kind of experience were they having? Shaq decided not to reveal who he was. Not yet. Instead, he quietly observed. As he waited for his meal, he noticed more about Leo. When other tables called him over, Leo seemed annoyed, his smile forced. When an elderly couple asked for some extra napkins, Leo simply tossed them onto their table without a word. But it wasn't just Leo. Shaq's keen eyes noticed other little issues too. The kitchen staff seemed rushed, almost chaotic. A table nearby got the wrong order and had to wait another 15 minutes for a correction. The hostess seemed distracted, not giving new guests a warm welcome. The magic that Shaq had once felt in his restaurant seemed to be fading away. Finally, Shaq's pasta arrived. It was decent, not bad, but not the exceptional quality he had once been so proud of. The flavors were bland, the presentation was careless, and the dish lacked the heart that the Golden Spoon was known for. As he ate, Shaq felt a mix of emotions, sadness, disappointment, but also determination. He knew he couldn't let his restaurant become just another place with average food and rude service. It was time for a change. When Shaq finished his meal, he asked for the bill. Leo returned, still with that cold, indifferent look. Shaq handed over his card and, as Leo processed the payment, Shaq looked at him calmly and said, "You know, this place has great potential. But something tells me it could be much better. Leo barely reacted, handing back the card and walking away. But what Leo didn't know was that the next time Shaq visited, he wouldn't be a quiet, unassuming customer. He would return as the owner, ready to bring back the magic of the golden spoon. And this was just the beginning of the story. Because sometimes, it takes seeing your own dream from the eyes of a stranger to remember what made it special in the first place. Shaq sat at his small table, quietly waiting for his meal. At first, he tried to distract himself with his phone, but soon his attention was drawn to something much more interesting: Leo, the waiter. It didn't take long for Shaq to notice a pattern in how Leo treated customers. There was a rushed energy about him, almost like he was in a race he didn't want to run. Customers would call out to him, and his responses were short, sometimes even rude. He never smiled, and his voice carried a tone of frustration. Shaq watched as an elderly couple sitting a few tables away politely asked for a different seat, maybe one with a better view. Instead of happily assisting them, Leo sighed loudly, rolling his eyes before leading them to another table. He didn't even try to hide his irritation, and the couple exchanged an awkward glance. But they quietly followed him, perhaps too polite to say anything about his attitude. A few minutes later, a young family entered. They had a cheerful little toddler, who was all giggles and curiosity. The parents asked Leo for a high chair so the child could sit comfortably. But Leo's reaction was almost as if they had asked him to build a high chair from scratch. His face tightened, and though he fetched the chair, he did so with an expression that seemed to scream, "This is such a hassle." By now, Shaq's initial mild irritation was turning into real concern. This didn't look like a waiter having a bad day. This looked like a waiter who had made every day a bad one for his customers. Was this how Leo treated everyone who walked in? Shaq began to wonder how the restaurant even managed to keep customers coming back with someone like Leo on the team. Soon, Shaq's food arrived. Leo didn't say a word. No, enjoy your meal, no offer of freshly cracked pepper or some extra parmesan, nothing. He simply plunked the plate of pasta in front of Shaq and walked off. The plate itself didn't look too bad, but as Shaq picked up his fork and twisted it into the pasta, he quickly noticed it was overcooked, soft, almost mushy. Not enough to be inedible, but definitely not the perfect al dente texture you'd expect from a good restaurant. For a moment, Shaq thought about letting it go. After all, a slightly overcooked pasta wasn't the end of the world. But something inside him wanted to see how Leo would react to a polite complaint. It wasn't just about the food, it was about understanding this strange attitude Leo seemed to have towards customers. Was he always this way, or was there something deeper going on? Shaq subtly raised his hand, trying to catch Leo's attention. But Leo seemed to be making a point of avoiding eye contact, busying himself with everything but Shaq's table. Finally, after what felt like a long wait, Leo walked over. His expression was a mix of boredom and annoyance, like he was being pulled away from something important. "Yeah?" he asked, his tone completely flat. Shaq kept his voice calm and polite. "Hey, I just wanted to mention that the pasta is a bit overcooked. Is there a chance I could get a fresh plate?" Leo's reaction was almost immediate. He let out a heavy sigh, as if Shaq had asked for something incredibly unreasonable. "It's pasta," he replied, his voice sharp. "It's cooked. What's the problem?" Shaq was taken aback. He hadn't expected such a defensive response. But he kept his cool. "I understand. It's just that it's a little too soft, and I was hoping for something closer to al dente." Leo stared at Shaq for a moment, and then, without another word, grabbed the plate and walked off. No apology, no promise to fix it quickly, just a silent, almost resentful departure. As Shaq watched Leo storm away, he couldn't help but shake his head. This wasn't just about the pasta or a single bad interaction. It was becoming clear to Shaq that Leo had somehow convinced himself that being rude, rushing customers, and showing no patience was just part of his job. But why? Was it stress? Frustration with his job? Or was this simply who Leo was now? Shaq's curiosity grew. Would Leo come back with a new plate of pasta? Would his attitude improve? Or was this just the beginning of a much more revealing experience at this restaurant? Stay tuned, because things are about to get even more interesting. Shaq sat quietly at his table, trying to enjoy his meal, but something just wasn't right. The pasta in front of him was soft, almost mushy, clearly overcooked. Shaq wasn't one to complain easily, but after watching how Leo, the waiter, treated other customers with impatience and rudeness, he felt he needed to speak up. Maybe, just maybe, a polite word could help Leo understand the importance of good customer service. Taking a deep breath, Shaq gently waved Leo over. It took a while, but eventually, Leo trudged over, his face already showing annoyance, as if this was the last thing he wanted to do. "Excuse me," Shaq began, keeping his voice calm and polite. "The pasta is a little overcooked." But instead of an apology or even a simple acknowledgement, Leo let out a sharp, mocking laugh. "Overcooked?" he repeated, a hint of sarcasm in his voice. "Everyone else seems to like it. Maybe your taste buds are off." Shaq's eyes widened slightly. Was this really how a waiter was supposed to respond to a customer's concern? But he wasn't going to get upset. He tried again, keeping his tone friendly. "Well, it's just a little softer than I prefer. I thought I should mention it." But Leo wasn't interested in being reasonable. He leaned in, a smug grin stretching across his face. "Look, buddy, we're busy. If you're going to nitpick every little thing, maybe you should just eat at home next time." Shaq's polite smile faded slightly. A simple comment about the pasta had turned into a confrontation. And it wasn't just what Leo was saying, it was the way he said it. The arrogance, the disrespect. Shaq had seen enough bad customer service in his life, but this was something else. But it was that last line, "Maybe you should just eat at home next time," that finally crossed the line for Shaq. Something changed in his expression. His friendly, patient demeanor transformed into a calm, focused seriousness. He looked directly at Leo, locking eyes with the rude waiter. "Do you speak to all the customers like this?" he asked, his voice steady but sharp. Leo, completely unaware of who Shaq really was, seemed completely unfazed. He shrugged casually, like it was no big deal. "Only the ones who complain about nothing," he shot back. In that moment, Shaq saw it clearly, this wasn't just a bad day for Leo. This was how he always treated customers. Disrespect, sarcasm, and a total lack of care. But Leo still didn't understand who he was dealing with. To him, Shaq was just another random customer who could be pushed around. Shaq leaned back slightly in his chair, but his eyes never left Leo. He could feel the tension building, but he wasn't going to lose his temper. That wasn't his style. Instead, he calmly asked another question. "Is this how the management trains you to speak to customers?" Leo scoffed again, rolling his eyes. "Management? Yeah, right. I've been here longer than most of them. Trust me, they don't care." Shaq felt a mix of disappointment and determination. This wasn't just a rude waiter, it was a bigger problem. A restaurant where bad behavior went unchecked, where staff felt comfortable treating guests like an inconvenience. But Shaq wasn't just any customer. He had a choice to make: let this slide and walk away, or take action. For a moment, the restaurant felt a little quieter, like the air was thicker. Leo was already turning to walk away, assuming he had won the argument, but Shaq wasn't finished. "Hold on," he called out, his voice clear and confident. Leo paused, reluctantly turning back. Shaq leaned forward slightly, his calm voice carrying a weight that Leo clearly didn't understand yet. "I think we should have a chat with your manager. Right now." Leo's smirk faltered just a bit. What, you gonna complain? Go ahead. They don't care. You'll be wasting your time. Shaq smiled slightly, but it wasn't a friendly smile, it was the kind of smile that said things were about to get serious. Oh, I don't think I'll be wasting anyone's time, he said. Leo's confidence wavered just a little. Who was this guy? Why wasn't he getting angry or leaving? Why did he look so sure of himself? Shaq stood up calmly, his eyes still on Leo. Lead the way, he said, gesturing toward the back of the restaurant. There was a quiet strength in his voice, a sense of control that Leo hadn't expected. This was no longer just about a plate of pasta. It was about respect, about customer service, and about a restaurant that seemed to have lost its way. And Leo was about to learn that actions have consequences. Stay tuned, because this story is about to take a dramatic turn. The change in Leo was almost immediate. Gone was the arrogant, dismissive waiter who had rolled his eyes at customers and treated them like a burden. Instead, there stood a young man who seemed genuinely shaken, his confident smirk replaced by nervous, stammering apologies. Sir. Mr. O'Malley. I had no idea. I'm so sorry, he blurted out, his voice trembling. Please, let me get you a fresh dish. Anything you want, it's on the house. But Shaq didn't come here looking for a free meal. He calmly raised his hand, a gentle but firm gesture. Leo, he said, his voice steady, it's not about a free meal. It's about how you treat our customers. Every single one of them. And this is where the story took a surprising turn. You see, many people in Shaq's position might have reacted with anger. They might have yelled, demanded Leo's immediate firing, or made a scene. But Shaq wasn't just any restaurant owner. He was someone who believed in something bigger. Respect, second chances, and the power of a good lesson. Rather than storming out or calling for Leo's head, Shaq asked the young man to sit with him for a moment. The busy restaurant seemed to slow down as Leo, still pale and sweating, nervously pulled up a chair. His hands were shaking, his mind racing with thoughts of losing his job, of being humiliated in front of his colleagues. But Shaq wasn't here to humiliate anyone. He looked Leo in the eye, his expression calm but serious. Leo, he began, when people come to the Golden Spoon, they're not just here for food. They're here for an experience. They're here to feel welcome, respected, and valued. Every person who walks through that door should leave happier than when they came in. Leo nodded quickly, not daring to interrupt. His usual bravado was gone, replaced by a quiet, desperate focus. I get it, Shaq continued. I get that work can be stressful. I get that customers can be difficult sometimes. But it's our job to make their day a little better, not worse. And when you treat them with disrespect, you're not just hurting them, you're hurting this restaurant. You're hurting yourself. Leo swallowed hard, his eyes fixed on the table. I didn't mean to be rude. Sometimes I get frustrated. But that's no excuse, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. Shaq nodded. Exactly. It's not an excuse. But it is something you can change. The question is, do you want to? Leo looked up, surprise and relief flickering in his eyes. Was this really happening? Was he being given a chance? Yes, sir. I do. I really do, he answered quickly, his voice full of determination. Shaq leaned back slightly, a small, understanding smile on his face. Then prove it, Leo. Not just to me, but to every customer who walks in. Show them what great service looks like. Make them feel like they're the most important people in the world, even if just for the time they're here. When their conversation ended, Leo didn't just go back to his shift. He seemed transformed. He moved faster, but not with impatience, with energy. His tone was friendlier, his smile genuine. He greeted customers warmly, listened to their requests, and made sure they left satisfied. His rude, dismissive attitude was gone, replaced by a sense of pride in his job. And Shaq? He didn't just leave the restaurant that night feeling victorious. He left feeling hopeful. Because he hadn't just corrected a rude waiter, he had given someone a chance to be better. But the story didn't end there. Word of the incident spread quickly among the staff. The tale of the rude waiter who unknowingly insulted the owner, the Big Shaq himself, became a legend within the Golden Spoon. It was a story they shared with new hires, a reminder that you never know who you're serving and that respect should be at the heart of everything they do. As for Leo? He didn't just keep his job, he thrived. Over time, he became one of the restaurant's most polite and efficient waiters. Customers who had once avoided his tables now requested his service, and his friendly attitude became something the regulars looked forward to. Leo learned not just to serve food, but to serve happiness, to make every customer's day a little better. Whenever someone asked Leo why he always seemed so positive and respectful, he would simply smile and say, "Because you never know who you're serving, and you never know who's watching." The story of Leo and Shaq became a powerful lesson, not just about customer service, but about second chances, about leadership, and about the simple truth that respect is the real secret ingredient of any great restaurant. So, the next time you walk into a restaurant, remember this story. And if you're the one serving, remember, every customer is important, and every moment is a chance to make a difference. What a wild turn of events. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment your favorite part, and subscribe for more engaging content. Thanks for tuning in.